Today's NDE afterlife experience is from Mary. Mary died twice in her 20s. While in the white void of the afterlife, Carrie was told repeatedly that she needed to return from heaven because she had so much to do yet. Upon her return, Carrie turned her life around, thanks to her shocking experience of life after death. Welcome to Near-Death Tales. If this is your first time checking this channel out, I'm glad to have you here. My name is Joseph, and I will be narrating the near-death experiences of those who have died and have seen the other side. Today's experience comes from Mary. Here it is. Hi, I'm Mary, and I died twice in 1992 and 1993. My first death was pretty dark. I was a bartender and I had drank too much. I ended up choking on my own fluids. I was incapacitated. I just couldn't move, and so I died. I slipped out of the top of my body and floated above my body. I thought I would go to the light, but to my surprise, I didn't. I started to hear some really dark things like demonic noises and sounds, and things started to come out of the floorboards, like these little black creatures. Soon, I was facing toe-to-toe with what we would know as the devil. I remember thinking at the time that I was an atheist. I didn't want to believe in any of this stuff because, years before, I had had an abortion and I was beating myself up so much. I was thinking, I don't want to believe in anything out there because then I'll have to be accountable, and I don't want to be accountable. I don't want to have anyone judging me. And there I was, standing face to face with this thing. I remember thinking, okay, so if this is real, and if God and Jesus are looking at this in front of me, and I can feel him trying to hypnotize me, like he was trying to coax me into coming with him, I realized that if he's real, there has to be something opposite of it, and there has to be something good. So at that moment, I called in God and Jesus to be by my side. I said, God and Jesus, you have to be by my side now. To my surprise, they did. God was to my right and Jesus showed up to my left. Immediately that thing ran, its eyes lit up, and it flew out the window, along with all the little minions that went with it. So I had a conversation with the Creator there at that moment, and I said, why did he come for my spirit? For my soul. The Creator said that my soul was for the taking in the most loving and gentle voice. I had given up on faith. My soul was for the taking. I had beaten myself up so much that I had no faith left, and so he felt that I was vulnerable enough that he could take my spirit. Thank goodness I called out for help. So over the next year, I cleaned up my act. I stopped drinking and got out of the party scene. I left working at a nightclub and I turned my life around. Then I met who would be my first husband, and instantly I knew that he was the one that I was going to be married to and have children with. So I was engaged after just a couple of weeks of meeting him. I was at home packing, moving out of my beloved hippy-dippy house, and as I was packing, I was putting pictures in a box. I remember having sorrow and feeling a bit of stress. It was like, should I be doing this? Is this right? Because gosh, do I really know him? There was also a lot of guilt. You see, I'm Aboriginal, I'm Native, and I kind of came from the other side of the tracks, and his family was a good Catholic family. They just were a really beautiful family together, and my family was beautiful as well. But, I had had an abortion, and I had done things that I was really ashamed of, and I didn't think that his Catholic background family would be approving of me. So I started to feel a bit of stress about this. Am I doing the right thing? There was a family history of heart problems, and that's when I started to get chest pains. I had had chest pains for a very long time. My grandmother died at 32 from a heart attack, and my mom had a quadruple bypass at 42. So we had a long history of heart problems in our family, so it didn't surprise me that at a very young age I had heart issues as well. I came to understand that whenever I started to get the palpitations or, the heart murmurs, I would start to cough. So I leaned over and started to cough, thinking this would stop it. I laid down and made a deal with myself that, okay, well, I'll rest, and if I still have the chest pains when I wake up from a nap, then I'll go to the hospital. Well, I lay down and boom, this sharp pain hit me in my chest like a knife. It was so strong, and immediately I was back and up and out of my body, just like my first death. I slid out of my head and was hovering above my body. Only this death, the second death, this big brown bird came in and swooped down, grabbing me by the back and lifting me up out of my bedroom, out of the house. Now we're going up into the sky, And I remember looking down and watching Earth getting smaller and smaller. We started to go into the clouds, and as we went into these beautiful radiant clouds, we entered into a void. It was a vastness of a white room. First of all, you do feel the love. It's just like what everyone says in near-death experiences. The love is overwhelming. It is so profound, but also there was no sound, and I could feel my ears vibrating and pulsating because the pressure was so great. It took a little bit to adjust to that pressure. The bird sat me down on a seat that looked like a cloud, and I remember looking down at this cloud-like chair and thinking, wow, I can feel the love coming up through the chair and into me. And I was just absorbing all this love. There is no other way to describe it. So as this energy is coming up and through me, I'm looking down to see what it's made out of. And then I look up, and someone was standing in front of me. I jumped. I was so shocked that someone was there, and I recognized him instantly from my first death. It's who I knew as God, who was to my right. I remember feeling like wanting to call him God, but then I also had an understanding that he went by many names. It was like I was being downloaded with so many names, and they were just a line, a litany of names. So I asked him, "What name do I call you?" He said, "It matters less the name that you call me as long as you call my name. It doesn't matter what you call Spirit, whether you call him Grandfather Spirit, God, Buddha, Allah, whatever name you have for this beautiful spirit that is guiding you, it matters more that you speak with them and that you call in the energy on a daily basis and just connect with them." So I realized in the conversation with God that God is creative, actually, because what I was downloaded with was I could see how all spiritual practices, all religions, they all are with the motive to bring every one of us together to the very same point, and that point is called the Spirit Song. The Spirit Song is a vibration. It is where sound and music are combined, and it creates a vibration that brings us all together in the spirit of love. From there, I saw something move out of the corner of my eye, and I realized Jesus was with us as well. Again, he was to my left, and we had some great conversations, he and I, about the power of thoughts. I think that the greatest challenge that humanity is facing right now is thought pollution. It's not just humanity, because with every negative thought that we have, or evil thought, or stuff that we see on the television, that we're putting out there into the thought waves, that becomes common stock pollution. It leaves the world as we know it and goes into other dimensions, other galaxies, other planets, other ET nations. It affects the whole. So our other mission here is to clean up our stinking thinking thoughts. This is our responsibility to start focusing on love, on light, on laughter, on joy, on abundance, on everything that is good. It is a choice. The best spiritual practices that you can have are to treat your body, your mind, your spirit with unconditional love and focus on spiritual growth while you are here. By the way, there was an artist, Annika, I believe was her first name. She painted when she was 8 or 12 years old, the Prince of Peace. There was a portrait of Jesus, and when I saw this portrait, I burst into tears when I went back to Earth, because this was the image of Jesus that I saw on the other side years prior. So it was a confirmation for me that indeed I was speaking with that Jesus, that was Prince of Peace. So anyways, I finished a conversation with Jesus, and then I looked back up and God was walking away from me. I thought, what is going on here? Jesus disappeared, and he smiled as he was disappearing. I started to get a little nervous because I thought, oh no, Judgment Day is now going to begin. We're going to talk about my abortion, aren't we? Before I knew it, I actually was sitting in front of this semicircle table, and I was in the center facing the semicircle table, and God was opposite me with elders. There were 12 elders sitting at the table beside him. God introduced them all and said, "This is the council of men." I remember thinking, man, well, where are all the women? That was my first thought, and they all started to chuckle. I realized, right, yeah, they can hear my thoughts. So anyways, all the communication was through thought to thought, right? You didn't have to actually speak. I said, where are all the women? They said, oh, there's much female feminine energy around you here. In fact, it's all around you. But what you are now seeing is the male energy. Because you've been wounded so much by male energy, or imbalanced with your male energy, We have brought you here to find that balance and for you to realize how much you are loved. We need you to love yourself as much as we love you." The main elder was to God's left, and he was telling me, "We're very glad that you didn't commit," because there were many times in my life that I had thought about it. They said, when a soul commits, it creates an abrupt break or fracture in the matrix, and then when you create this fracture, you end up being in an endless loop. It takes a lot of time and a lot of energy to actually move yourself out of there. There are two routes that a societal soul will take once they've committed. The first is to go directly to the white void, which we know is heaven, and when they get to the white void, they do what I did, a life review. You get to speak with spirit, perhaps the councilman or your spirit guides or your loved ones that have passed, and you resolve a lot of issues, a lot of things that you thought were real but ended up being not so real. There's a greater understanding, especially through the life review, that is profound. So anyways, with this little soul, you have two ways you can go. Straight to the white void to resolve all those issues, rest for a bit, and then you return back and start all over again in a parallel dimension. Now this was in 1993 that I died the second time. We didn't know about quantum physics. We didn't know about parallel dimensions and parallel universes and all that sort of stuff, right? In 1993, I remember them saying, yeah, the battle soul comes back and starts all over again with the same parents, the same experiences, the same lessons, same choices. You get to the point where you commit, right? And you're either going to commit suicide again and become an endless loop, or you're going to make a conscious decision to say enough. So anyways, the other route that a soul can take is a very dark route. What I was shown was the second route was, instead of going to the white void, that little soul goes into this abyss. It's like a holding station, but it's very dark. It's a tough place to be in. Because, you can hear howls and you can hear tormented voices and, tormented faces will come in and out. These are people that you might not even understand who they are or recognize them, but they're souls that you either feel guilt about or there's abandonment issues or whatever it may be. So the souls will often just be trapped, feeling that they are trapped in this gray void, but they aren't trapped. All they have to do is, like I did in my first near-death experience, say, God and Jesus, be by my side. I want to go to the light. I want to see the light. I want to be out of this place and lift myself up. That's all you have to do is to have faith. So when I saw that, I thought, I will never consider it again in my life. I'm not coming back and doing this all over again. I'm going to get it right the first time. So if you are thinking of suicide, or if you know someone that's thinking it, let them know about that because you will save them in so many ways you have no idea. So we had a great conversation about that. I had had the abortion, and I thought that I wasn't going to have any more children because after the abortion, I had so much scar tissue in me that I was told by physicians that there was no hope. I would have no children, and that was devastating to me. So I thought, okay, maybe it's God's way of punishing me because I had the abortion and I killed a child, and so therefore I'm not worthy to have any children. That's how I rationalized it. But in the end, in speaking with these elders, they were saying, we wanted to bring you here because we want you to understand, first of all, you have a mission. You have a lot to do. You got to go back. You got a lot to do. But secondly, we want you to understand the level of love that we have for you. And we need you to love yourself as much because that first death was all because you weren't loving yourself. You need to find that love. Love thyself, love thyself, love thyself, they kept saying to me. And so they said, you have to go back because you've got too much to do. We went back and forth a couple of times and they kept insisting, you got too much to do. I was like, my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do that's so profound? Because, well, look, I was a drunk. I was a bartender that was an alcoholic. I was illiterate. I was in the dummy class in grade 8. I failed grade 12. I was a freaking mess, and what am I going to do that's so profound? That's when they huddled together and made a decision to show me something that they don't normally show. And that is what I would be missing out on if I didn't go back. All of a sudden, this cubic pyramid sphere popped in front of us, and I understood it to be a 9D hologram. I didn't know what a 9D hologram was, but that's what they said it was. It was a sphere that had a cube inside with 4 pyramids that came to a point. So it's called a cubic pyramid within a sphere, right? And where all the pyramids came to a point, it lit up like a light. It was so bright. When I looked into it, I could see movement, and immediately I was brought into this hologram, which was bringing me through like a wormhole, and it split. Simultaneously, I had two experiences in one. On one hand, I was experiencing a beautiful child that had brown hair and blue eyes, and she was so beautiful. She was so vibrant. Oh my gosh, I saw the birth of her. I saw taking care of her playing in the yard, and it was a beautiful moment. You know, here I was thinking that I'd never have children, and there's this moment that felt so real that I was with this beautiful little brown-haired, blue-eyed girl. Then simultaneously, I was also having another experience that I could comprehend both of them. I was like split and experiencing both of them at the same time. This one was the little blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl, and I saw again her birth and every aspect of enjoying her youth and growing up, nurturing her. She was the cook. She was the one that loved cooking. At that moment, I realized, I'm going to have a child. Oh my God, I'm going to have children. So it was overwhelming to me because I had resigned myself to the fact that I wasn't going to have any kids. I came out of that hologram. I hit the chair so fast I bounced off, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have children. Am I going to have children? And they were like, yes, we want you to see what you would be missing if you didn't go back. I go, okay, I'm sold. I'm going back. When can I go back? Can I go back right now? I was so damn excited. I could hardly wait to go back because they knew that above everything, I wanted to be a mom. So just as I'm ready to go back, the Creator came to me, and now we're standing up. He said, before you go, is there anything that you would like to ask of us that you would be able to bring back this information and help share it with others? I remember thinking, oh boy, that's kind of a profound question, but drew a blank. All of a sudden, I saw this little speck of light, and it came zipping around and around me, and then it went into the tender part just behind my ear, and it lit up that pineal gland inside the center of your brain. Instantly, I understood what I needed to ask, and I said, I got it. Okay. I understand that God loves everyone. He loves the rapists, the murderers, the people that do the most heinous things on the planet. How can God still love people that do the worst things on earth? He goes, oh, that's easy, like this. And he did a swoop of his hand. Immediately, I was transported into yet another room, and it was me sitting in a chair, but it was a younger version of me, and there was a counselor sitting there. The counselor said, okay, so what we'll do is we'll go over everything that you've chosen to learn on the other side. The counselor then got up and out of the vision. The vision froze, and she came over and greeted me. She said, hello, this is your memory self that is sitting there, and you are your observer self. Memory self, meet your observer self. Observe yourself, meet your memory self. And so she then sat down and said, right then, okay, so let's review what it is that you're going to learn when you go to Earth. And they started to go through some of the things like, your name is going to be Carrie Louise, and you're going to be born sickly. You're going to have kidney stones for the first 14 years of your life, and you'll be at the age of 3. My memory self went, oh my gosh, that is awesome. And my observer self, me that's kind of floating in the room, he went, whoa. She actually excited that she's going to be sickly and molested and all of that. Again, the counselor stepped out of the image and came, and everything froze. She said to me, what your memory self remembers that you have remembered to forget when you came to this side of the veil, right when you came into Earth, what she remembers is the 5 lessons of life, and that when you apply these 5 lessons to every aspect of your world, everything that you are experiencing, then that is why you're here, to grow yourself spiritually. And so she's excited at these experiences because each experience is an opportunity to apply the 5 lessons of life, and when you do this, you will grow beyond measure. So the counselor goes and sits down again. Now they start going through different aspects. A hologram pops up, and it's an image of my mother and father, and I get to choose my parents. They get to choose me. So we come to an agreement. Would you like to be Carrie's parents on Earth? I remember thinking, yeah, but does the memory stuff remember my dad's drinking years? Because that was a little difficult, That was pretty tough because there'd be highs and lows. And so again, the counselor came out and said, your memory self understands why your father has the rage that he did, and she has compassion for that. She forgives, she trusts, and has faith that he's going to be the perfect dad, and she unconditionally loves him already. So you both get to practice that when you go to the other side. So we had my parents chosen, and so she goes and sits down. The counselor goes and sits down again, and all of a sudden the room fills up, the soul pack, with 12 beautiful radiant beings that come in and stand behind the counselor. So the counselor introduced me to my soul pack, and she says, "This is your soul pack. Everyone has a soul pack, and you travel with these souls throughout all of your lifetimes, all of your journeys, and that's why when you meet them on Earth, you recognize them. You know them instantly. Right?" She then says, "So which two of you, the soul pack of the 12, which two of you would like to be curious molesters?" And that's when I went, okay, no. I can't do this anymore. And the counselor kind of shushed me and went, "Would you please just watch and trust?" Right? And so I sat, I kind of just sat back and thought, okay, I don't know about this. So those two that volunteered, they lifted up, and all of a sudden, they went zooming to Earth. We all watched them. We could feel them enter into the wombs of their mothers, their prospective mothers. And you could feel the pain and the sorrow that was surrounding, the alcoholism, the fetal alcohol syndrome in them. And all the abuse that was around them. Yeah, you could hear the screaming, and it was just a hell of a beginning for both of them. And they really had a very difficult life, both we watched. As they grew up, basically just before I was about to be, everything froze. I remember turning to the counselor because we were all watching it, all 12 of us, and the counselor, and my memory self, and myself. It felt like real time, but it sped up. So when everything froze, I turned to the counselor and went, "Wait. I only remember up to a certain point, and I don't remember past that point, so I need to know what happened, right? I only remember up to that certain point." And so the counselor said, "The memory will come to you when it's meant to, but for now, we want to focus on the 5 lessons of life. We want you to focus on the fact that your molesters, the people that hurt you, were actually your best friends in heaven. So the people that hurt you the most are actually your best friends. They volunteered to have a hell of a life, to experience one heck of a life, in order to give you the opportunity to practice the 5 lessons of life of forgiveness, compassion, faith, and trust, and unconditional love. Not only towards them, but towards yourself as well. To have unconditional love for yourself, to have faith that you are on the right track, and everything happened for a reason, and to have trust that God has a greater plan in all of this, and to have compassion for yourself and forgiveness. Not only for them, but for yourself as well." So from that experience, I realized that I was still holding on to a lot of stuff, and I needed to let it go. That's when I had to come to a realization that, okay, my mom always said, "Today's tragedy is tomorrow's blessing." And that experience made those words so alive. You see, when I came back, I did eventually come back. They kept saying, "God, go back here. You got too much to do." And I remember thinking, yeah, right. Well, when I did come back, I spent, the first year I married my husband, and that was really lovely. Then we had our first daughter, who was a brunette, and then we had the second daughter, who was the blonde. I ended up working as a counselor and therapist and helping people find the light within and realize that, it's all going to be fine in the end. Our mission here is to grow ourselves spiritually through song, through hope and love and prosperity, through throwing all that garbage, all the stuff that no longer serves us, into the cosmic garbage cans, through being everything that you can be, and just having that 5 lessons of life active in your life each and every day.